Good morning and welcome to the October 15th meeting of the City Utilities Committee. I'm Councilmember Antonio Lewis, Chair of the committee. I'm joined by council members from my left, the Honorable Councilmember Alex Vaughn, the Honorable Councilmember Howard Shook, and to my right, the Honorable Councilmember Byron Amos. Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda? It's been moved and properly second, moved by Councilmember Vaughn. The second was a little faster from Councilmember Amos than Councilmember Shook, so second by Councilmember Amos. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
We have one speaker signed up for public comment today, Brother Anthony Mohammed.
Mr. Chair, we have to
I
approve the
apologize.
minutes.
Yep, let's go back. I'm having a good day. I got my uncle in the crowd today, so I apologize. Let me go back. So it's been moved by Councilmember Shook, second by Councilmember Vaughn to approve the minutes. Can we please open the vote, Mr. Johnson?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
We have one speaker for public comment today, Brother Anthony Mohammed. Is he currently in the building? He's here. I think I just saw him.
He's here, but he's not in the committee room.
Yep. Is there a way? Well, would anyone be okay with us coming back to this after the presentation? So, thank you. If we can we go to the Department of Watershed Management presentation? Commissioner Wiggins, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Chairman Lewis, committee members. Doing great. Hope that you are also. Thank you for the opportunity this morning to present DWM's Q4 2024 report. This report actually concludes the fiscal year, but not the calendar year, of course. Al Wiggins, Interim Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management. Okay, we'll start by our org chart. Just a few minor changes to our org chart. We recently onboarded an HRBP manager, and that position reports directly to the commissioner now, primarily to work with the HRBP director to staff some of our difficult to fill positions. We're also working with our chief administrative officer, who's also known as the chief people officer. He's closely involved in a lot of the hiring and training initiatives that we'll discuss later in the presentation. The org chart also reflects the implementation of the chief of staff position that's currently being staffed by Chief Anu Salsowitz. Okay, we'll dive into some of our positions and our vacancies. Just keep in mind that these numbers are reflective of the time period for this particular report. You'll see that we have roughly about 149 vacancies. 64 of those vacancies are with our water treatment facilities, and 73% are with our water distribution facilities, basically our wastewater plants. So out of the 64 for our water treatment facilities, about 64 of those positions require some sort of license. And out of the 73 vacant positions for our OLEO group, about 49% of those positions require licenses as well. It's important to mention because oftentimes we get questions about recruitment fairs to assist with filling those vacancies. Recruitment fairs are good for some of our entry-level positions that don't require a certain level of experience or a particular license to perform the duties. So a job fair is not always the most effective way to do that. But we are making plans to conduct a job fair for positions that, again, don't require those certifications in partnership with the Atlanta Technical College. We've also had discussions with Chairman Lewis about this particular job fair as well. Okay, you'll see here the partnership that I just referenced with the Atlanta Technical College. You'll see a photo here of the kickoff event, and we'll go a little bit deeper into that program later into the presentation. I think another noteworthy initiative that we have underway is that we're partnering with the Atlanta Public Schools under their GED program. I don't have a lot of information or data to share with you regarding that program because this is a confidential program and the participants are able to self-enroll into the program. But we thought it was important to partner with the school system just to make sure that our folks have access to the GED program. All right, so you'll see here some of our training program highlights. You'll see that we have about 8 folks that were enrolled in a wastewater treatment process course. 2 have successfully completed that course, and we're waiting for the other 6 participants to complete their exam. As our water course breakdown, 2 employees have passed the exam, and we have about 8 employees that still need to be scheduled for the exam. And as it relates to our CDL training classes, we have about 8 participants for this particular time frame. And 4 of those have successfully passed their exam. The other 4 are scheduled to take their exams. Our electrical training course for our certified electricians, they have obtained 4 credit hours towards the 8 credit hours that are required. We have several electricians that work at our facilities, such as our drinking water facilities and our wastewater treatment plants. Okay, here you'll see just a snapshot of the FY 2024 operating budget. You'll see that water and sewer represents about 72% of the budget at $466 million, and the most is anticipated to be at about $153 million. Okay, this next slide, you'll see our operational budget. You'll see that our revenue is trending slightly above our projections, which is good. We're able to keep our expenses in line with our projections as well for FY24. Here you'll see the water and sewer cumulative revenue. You'll see that our projected and our actual expenses, and for FY23 and FY24, you'll see they're pretty much trending in the same direction and in line with our projections. Moving on to operations, just by the numbers for this particular time period, I wanted to highlight a few significant changes that we've noticed. For Q4, we have installed 271% more meter installations than we have been able to in the past, which is a very good thing. With development on the rise, we want to make sure that the meters are readily available, and we're very responsive to those requests. And the numbers will show that we have been able to significantly improve the amount of meters that we've installed for that particular time period. You'll also see that we treated almost about 1 billion gallons more than we did in 24 Q4, excuse me. We treated about 1 billion gallons more than we did for FY23, the fourth quarter FY 2023. Conversely, we treated about 1.2 gallons less of wastewater. Oftentimes we're asked, is there a one-to-one relation between the treatment of wastewater and the consumption of drinking water? And the answer is no, simply because we have customers who aren't subscribers to our sewer services that only receive drinking water. So there won't be a one-to-one ratio, but we closely look at any signs of water loss in our plants. So we feel that we're in a comfortable position right now. So I just really wanted to explain that relationship. We get a lot of questions about the correlation between drinking water and wastewater. Okay, so this particular slide, you'll see our top service requests. Coming in at number 1 is our leak or break request to investigate main breaks or leaks. You'll see that this number is one of the lowest that we have seen in the last year. The highest was about 1,200 for the second quarter of FY24. Currently, we're at 921, so we're trending down as it relates to main breaks. As I mentioned earlier, you see that main meter installations is the number 2 request, and that service is up by 271%. We also receive complaints about leaking hydrants. Those complaints are down, I believe, because we have been able to significantly increase the number of inspections to hydrants and pending repairs to fire hydrants as well. Moving on to our compliance section. So as a whole, our sewer spills have drastically improved. The only area that we have not really seen any change, and it has remained flat, is public spills to state waters, major spills that are water related. 0% changes there, but we've seen 44% less sewer spills for public sewer overflows, about 50% less to public spills to state waters, and about 31% less with private spills on private property. So we're very excited about that trend for obvious reasons. This slide shows our plan reviews with our site development team. You'll see all 12 districts represented here. The top 3 districts, according to the amount of plan reviews that were conducted, District 9 comes in at number 1, District 6 is at number 2, and District 8 is coming in at number 3. District 9, again, is the top district, and we perform about 48 reviews during this time frame. All right, moving on to our capital improvement program. You'll see that we have about 423 miles completed with our sewer rehab projects, have about 100 miles left under this particular program. The program ends in 2027, and we are right on schedule for getting this project completed. All right, so here is our sewer relief project map. You see about $934 million worth of projects that were completed. A few of the notable projects are the Peachtree Creek Sewer Basin, Proctor Creek, and the South River Sewer Basin. About 65 square miles of capacity relief projects taking place under this program, which represents about half of the city. All right, so capacity relief projects remaining. These are programs under our consent decree where we see the light at the end of the tunnel as it relates to the consent decree program scheduled to end in 2027. Sewer group number 4 is the sewer group that we're currently working on. Sewer group 4 and 5 have about 8 projects remaining. Sewer Group 6 is the project that will conclude in 2027. We have about 31 projects left in that group, but we're on schedule to complete all of these projects according to the terms of the consent decree. Okay, so for safety and security, our injuries were slightly up. We've looked through the data. We can't find any particular data or trends that indicate why this is happening. But we're working closely with our safety team to make sure that we're offering the appropriate training, safety gear, and also ensuring that the work environment is, you know, provides a safe working atmosphere. All right, so moving on to key accomplishments. This particular slide addresses our new asset management software program. This is a huge project. It's a huge undertaking. Would like to give a huge thanks to AIM, who's assisted with this project. So this asset management software program will help us, number one, to identify our linear assets, which are water mains, valves, and devices that are attached to our linear assets. This is important because it will help us to identify the life cycle of the assets that are cataloged under this software program. It also will help us to identify any type of trends as far as repairs or main breaks or anything of that nature. I think it's also important to note that with this software program, we are also enhancing our technology that our crews are using out in the field. They will be equipped with mobile devices. This software program is mobile friendly. So our supervisors and some of our crew members will use these tablets to be able to provide information in real time. We're in the process of building a command center. The first phase is to outfit a temporary command center. This will help us to ensure that we're deploying our resources, our staff in a timely manner. Part of this program will involve direct communication to the command center. So we're very excited about this project. It will really be a game changer for DWM as it relates to maintaining our linear assets, which is much needed. All right, as you know, I always like to conclude my presentation by acknowledging our frontline heroes. Mr. Ralph Wells, who is no relation to Assistant Commissioner Wells, but he's still a great man. He served about 35 years with the Department of Watershed Management. He started as a meter reader and concluded his career as a senior service rep. All right, so that concludes my presentation. I wanted to make it brief. Should you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them at this time.
We've been joined, thank you, Commissioner. We've been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Andrea Boone and by the Honorable Councilmember Matt Westmoreland. The first question will come from the Honorable Councilmember Howard Shook.
Congratulations to Mr. Wells. Thank you for your service. Remind us, slide 9, in September, actuals were up over both projected and actual revenue. But then from there it went on a long, slow decline to below projection. Can you remind us as to what drove that sort of August, September spike?
I will have to go back with the team, but typically when you see a spike during a particular time period, it involves funding that's allocated towards a particular project. I don't believe we have that information, what project that is, but I'll be happy to furnish that.
I just thought maybe you would remember off the top of your head. I know I do not. Other than that, I mean, this chart is reflects the classic Bala recipe for success. Going back a little bit, I'm kind of curious. Regardless of the committee, apparently the answer to every personnel shortage is a, quote, hiring blitz. What is a hiring blitz? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So a hiring blitz is basically where we partner with the Department of Human Resources and we identify certain positions that we're trying to fill. And what we do is to consolidate the process. So for an example, if there is a background check that's required, or if we need to conduct any type of physical exam that's required for that position, oftentimes we'll have those providers right there on the scene to where they can provide these services at that particular location. So it's just a name for a strategic effort to fill certain positions. And it's a little bit different than a job fair, because a job fair is typically just focused on recruitment as a whole. A hiring blitz is really an effort to try to fill critically needed positions.
So salary enhancements for a lot of your employees, pension sweetener for the employees, as will be discussed in FEC tomorrow, we're going to be looking at healthcare costs, which largely are neutral. So to what extent do you think those factors are going to help fill some of these empty seats?
You know, competitive pay and benefits are always the common denominator, if you will. I feel that we have made some very significant changes under Mayor Dickens as far as incremental raises and other incentives that are offered to the employees. But we have as I mentioned earlier, positions that require a certain amount of experience or the ability to obtain a license. Our challenge there is that the success rate is not always as high as we would like for it to be. So what we're trying to determine is how do we develop or identify the ideal candidate to be able to take those exams. We've had internal discussions about creating an internal program for our operators, which would be something equivalent to like a reserve program. So folks that do not have those licenses, that may not be operating in that role currently, we will offer the opportunity for them to obtain that license. And should we lose a team member, that person would be able to roll into the position. But back to your question, Councilmember Shook, is a competitive wage and competitive benefits have always yielded the results that we're looking for.
Slide 13, your third highest OLEO service request category is hydrant complaints. What are typical complaints? I mean, are those notified via the fire department, citizens? What is complaint?
It's a combination of both, and it's basically a fire hydrant that may be leaking. And oftentimes, these complaints are generated internally. You may have seen some of our fire hydrants that in the event of a main break, a lot of times we have to purge the line, and you'll see a fire hydrant that's free-flowing. And just by doing their routine checks or just their daily duties, they're able to identify needed repairs to fire hydrants as well. So it's a combination of all three.
I forget, are we dry well or wet well here in Atlanta for the hydrants?
Or you mean our water reserve?
Yeah, no, for the fire hydrants themselves, are either dry well or wet well, as I understand it. And I forget which we have.
That's this DC McKitt.
Dry well. I think, and then my last thing is obviously kind of the status of our kind of valves and oversight of valves has been much in the news lately. So I would just like to hear kind of you talk about sort of the unhappy discoveries you've made recently and what you're doing to get us on a stronger footing.
Yes, sir. So our focus has been really on identifying valves, the condition of valves, in areas where we have critical facilities. What I mean by critical facilities are areas where we have pockets of dense populations, hospitals, schools, retirement homes. And so we've drawn a map and we've created an inventory of those locations. We've also coupled those inspections with a leak detection program. We have about 66,000 valves throughout our network. So considering that we probably have about a 20-day average of work days per month, that would be about 270 valves per day. So we realized it would be a huge undertaking for us to just go and inspect every valve quickly. So going back to the asset management program, we are able to document the condition of those valves. We're able to put templates in place to identify when those inspections have taken place and when the next scheduled inspection will take place. I think it's important to note that you've heard me mention that the DWM, prior to me coming on board in June, they were exercising valves. Unfortunately, our documentation does not support the level of activity that has taken place. So for me, it was just as important for us to build a program that's sustainable, for us to be able to document the work that's been done. Because if we continue to perform this work on a paper-based system, it has its flaws. Not only was it important for us to put the software program in place, it's important for us to build a team that's totally dedicated towards this effort. We need folks in leadership capacities. You heard me mention earlier that the command center is being built, and it's a way of us deploying resources and personnel, and that's no different from our strategy with exercising our valves. So the team is working on putting an invitation to bid on the inspection of valves. As I mentioned, we just don't have the capacity, and it's not the best use of our time for our teams to inspect 270 valves a day if we're trying to get this done in a year's time frame. What's important is that we have the correct language inside of that bid document. So our goal is to have that document released by the first of the year.
How certain are we that we even know where the valves are?
So there's always a question about the location of valves, and this is due to, at times, because of resurfacing work. So we're working with Commissioner Cavanis and his team because we have valves that have been buried because of road resurfacing work. So when we learn that a road will be resurfaced, we go out and conduct our initial inventory, make sure that those valves that are visible, that they're properly marked, that they're in our system. And then after the road is milled, we'll go out to see if we can discover valves that were previously covered. And if we do, we identify those valves and our asset management program as well. Most importantly, once the resurfacing work is completed, we go back out to see if we can identify the valves that were newly discovered and the valves that were uncovered before that process began. So to answer your question, the system is not 100% accurate. And part of the valve condition assessment will involve a valve inventory program. But to answer your question, Councilmember Shook, I believe our records are probably have a 85 to 90% accuracy level, just based on our experiences with locating valves in emergency situations.
Well, that was one of the things United Water was supposed to do, and they failed at that, just as they failed in most of the other critical deliveries they were supposed to make. It's disappointing that we just seem to have not learned any lessons. Part of the reason for that may be I won't say it's a revolving door for watershed commissioners, but it certainly does help when you have someone who's been there and can look back and have expectations that, and you weren't provided with that benefit when you came through the door. But that's a downside to swapping out commissioners. Last question about valves. With what frequency do you believe they should be exercised? Because utility standards seem to differ pretty broadly.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We've heard anywhere from 2 to 4 years. Given the condition and the age of our system, as you know, Atlanta was chartered in the late 1800s, right? So we have a infrastructure that's older than most of our competitors, or colleagues, I should say. So it's difficult to make a parallel comparison with what other jurisdictions are doing, considering the age of our infrastructure. For me, I think what's most important is that we establish a condition assessment and to inventory those valves. And based on the condition of those valves, we will know what the appropriate inspection intervals are. So the first wave is just because we have had challenges with making sure that the documentation is an accurate representation of the work that's been performed. It's almost like we're starting off with a zero-based process. Shortly after the main break that occurred in June, we brought a team on board to look at valves in areas where we were experiencing pockets of low water pressure, and also where these valves were located to critical infrastructure. And what we did learn is that that valves that were inspected, that quite a few were in working condition, but quite a few were in positions that didn't accurately reflect what was documented in the software program. So I hear you. It's unfortunate that we're here, but we have a solid plan, and my plan is to build a process that's not dependent on a person or a position. It's based on a solid asset management program that's incorporated into a software program.
Well, I mean, to me, the best time to have had that would have been 20 years ago, and which just means the second best time is today. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Councilmember Juan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. I want to piggyback on a couple of questions from my colleague, Mr. Shook. The first one is regarding the infrastructure. At the time in June when we had the challenges, the mayor announced that there was going to be a blue ribbon panel that was going to convene and start giving us recommendations, not just on the valves, but I think on the entire system. I was curious as to where have they convened and when might we expect any sort of kind of findings or beginnings of recommendations from that?
Yes, so that effort is led by Chief Strategy Officer Peter Amon. He has been working closely with that group, and I have through proxy with him.
Sure.
He has had a few meetings and conveyed information to me and posed questions, so those meetings are ongoing.
Okay.
I anticipate that he will be providing an update to the council on his work with that committee.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, we can ask our questions, but to have some sort of kind of expert roadmap for us to supplement our lens onto it would be helpful. So I'll follow up with him. On slide 5, in terms of the vacant positions, it was really revealing and helpful to hear the numbers in terms of the licenses and the certifications, because I think these data points are important and give us a little bit of insight into what the headwinds look like. To me, those are going to be the tough ones to fill because everybody's probably going after them. I'm curious as to if you've taken those positions and then looked at the class and compensation adjustments specifically for those positions to see if, you mentioned compensation and benefits are important, to see if we're making significant movements for those positions come January 1.
Yeah. So
has someone done that analysis, I guess?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I just received a call from CFO Bala last night about that very same question, as well as some of the executive positions that are difficult to fill. We have a few engineering roles that are very difficult to fill. So the answer is yes. We're looking at that with Department of Finance, Department of Human Resources, and internally. One of the things that I did not mention is that we have restructured our training program for some of the operator license positions. For an example, we had one program that was over a span of 2 days, almost handled like a crash course. So that program has been lengthened to 6 weeks. just to make sure that we're teaching the fundamentals and the concepts behind the work that's being performed, and quite frankly, to show them how to successfully pass the test, because some of our folks may have issues with just test anxiety, right? Or not know that taking a test that has multiple guesses, I call it multiple. So you're penalized by not completing those questions. So test-taking strategies are just as important as knowing the work. And so we're looking very closely at how we can cultivate folks from within, but in order to recruit operators with the level of experience or the license or credentials that we're looking for, we would have to recruit away from other organizations, which speaks to what Councilmember Shook said, is that we're looking at how competitive.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest with you, the first thing that jumped to my mind, what that signal is that we are not competitive, and that we've got to look at our compensations. That's why I'm hoping that if y'all then correlate it to the class and comp adjustments in January, that they will align. That yes, we recognize, the study recognized that we were behind, and we've got to implement increases. And the other reason is, I think it's great that you're trying to train and promote internally, but it doesn't do us any good if we do that. We get them the certification and boom, they're gone because they found a more attractive job too. So it's in our best interest to kind of try and triangulate in a way that allows us to poach from other companies, but then also if we're investing in our workforce, that we are able to retain them as well. So yeah, I hope y'all will take a close look at that and make sure that the adjustments are going to keep us competitive and not, again, just keep this revolving door situation going. Slide 8, with the full year budget, I'm surprised to see, again, with this persistent 20%, sometimes 30% vacancy, that we're actually over budget in personnel. So help me understand, is that solely because we're having to pay overtime? It's obviously not in contracted services because those would be in the non-personnel. So what can you tell me about that budget item?
Right. So primarily, right, is it involves overtime. Often involves because we aren't able to recruit personnel, that we promote some of the existing personnel into interim roles. And so that will increase their salary while they're filling those positions also. Although there's a slight increase, it's not as expensive as,
right.
The cost is not as much as hiring another full-time position, but that does go into the overrun for personnel costs.
Well, if you kind of look at it back of the envelope, if we're running a 20% vacancy, we should be 20% under budget in terms of personnel. Until you factor in overtime, which means that we've actually exceeded that by trying to make up the difference. And to me, again, triangulating on the class and comp, that's a signal too, that we may be 20% under budget, under market. And so you just got to look at it, because this is not sustainable either. I mean, we're going to work our employees, I don't want to say work them to death, because that's a horrible analogy, but we're just going to overstress them and not giving them work-life balance, which will end up losing them as well. So again, just need, these are indicators. So I hope that y'all are taking another look at that. And then finally, on the spillages on page 15, I appreciate the numbers. I think it would be helpful just to have points of reference in terms of, is this more than what the quarterly numbers look like in the past, so that we can see if we're trending positive or trending negative.
Yeah.
And I guess while all spills are not desirable, I think specifically the major spills are the ones that we've got to manage.
So for all categories, we are down with the exception of major spills. And those are the volumes over 10,000 gallons. So as a whole, we're trending down tremendously, as high as 50% in some areas.
That's great. So in the future, that would be great to have just kind of that trend, so that we see that we're heading in the right direction. So thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wan. Our next speaker is the Honorable Councilmember Byron Amos.
Actually, as I went down my list, my colleagues got all the questions. answered definitely about the valves. And then I'm glad to hear we got a program to train up as well. That was the biggest thing, and to see if ATC actually offers the courses that people would need the license for. So I think I heard that. Last but not least, I just want to say thank you to Watershed Management and of course DPW, because the last storm we had, trust me, I had all fingers crossed, holding my breath. Cook Park flooded, in which I must say is designed to do that, to hold water. But I got no phone calls about water in people's houses, no phone calls about parking lots becoming swimming pools. So whatever you did, thank you.
I wish I could take credit for it. It's a team, awesome team I have behind me. Yeah, you can give them a contact. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I saw you marking off stuff as they were asking questions too. I have a few questions. Take that back. So first we'll go to the Honorable Councilmember Boone.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for all of the hard work that you and your great team are rendering to the city of Atlanta. I want to make sure that we are working on a date for our Westview rescheduled meeting. For those Westview members that are at home, that are watching this meeting, I want them to know that that community is very important, and we need to schedule that meeting as soon as possible. That was a town hall meeting that would have been scheduled in September.
Yes.
So when can we expect that date?
So I believe Director Rawls has been in communication with your team to schedule a date, and if she hasn't made
Is she
positive
here?
contact,
Is she here? Yeah. We need to know about this.
we will definitely be in contact with you personally.
Yeah. What progress? Because we have to go back to the church, get a date, and we have a lot of stakeholders that are businesses and seniors. Tell me where you are on that, ma'am.
So where we are with that is, when we had the initial date, our goal was to have the contractor available to participate in that discussion, and as you mentioned before, making sure that the date aligns with the mayor's schedule as well.
I don't want to wait on that now, because we had a date set, and Robin and Dustin from Westview, the president, we had a date in September. It's now October 15th. We need that date, and we need to contact the church. We really need that date. Let's not wait on anyone else. Let's go back to the table and let's set a date. Let's be fair to these communities. That storm was 2.5 weeks ago. So please, let's set that date. And whatever I can do to help you, I will revise my schedule. But I want to be fair to all communities. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilmember Boone. I have a few questions as well, Commissioner. So thank you so much for the work you've done over the past few weeks. When Councilman Amos talked about the storm, we were nervous, but not nervous about you, because I saw you out. We saw the preparation before it happened. I know some folks were upset because you were out there 2-3 days before, but that was the kind of intention that it took. So I truly appreciate the members of DPW, Department of Watershed Management, and DPW, who kept our city safe and who cleaned up the city as much as they could during that process. My questions are, I was able to write a few questions from a few different pages, so I'll jump around a little bit. Apologies. Did you say 51% of the positions are open, are entry level open?
No, I did we had about 149 positions that were open, and between our linear infrastructure, Office of Linear Infrastructure, and positions that are open in our wastewater and our drinking water plants. I just provided a breakdown of those positions. So the majority of those positions that are vacant require some type of credential in order to build.
And I wrote the number, and you might have to look back into it. I think you said the number was 49% needed skilled jobs, so I assumed that 51% were entry level.
Yeah, so Mayor, so 49% of the vacant positions for our CDL licenses and our water distribution licenses require.
So that means the other 51% that are open are entry level.
Well, no, so the other side of that, there was another 41% that was represented for positions that are in our water treatment plants. So as a collective, we just went over the numbers for the positions that require
I
those
think
licenses.
what I'm trying to get to, if a hiring blitz,
Yeah.
if we have a hiring blitz, not a job fair, if we have a hiring blitz for positions that people don't need skills for, I hear 49% you need a CDL or a technical skill for. Did you?
That's correct.
So that means 51% we don't need a skill for?
No, the other 51%, nearly 51%, are positions that require other licenses. So these are 73 vacant positions, right? So the remainder of the 73 vacant positions for the CDL licenses, about half of those require a license. So I think what you're saying is for the positions that are currently vacant,
That don't
is a
need
hiring
anything.
blitz in order.
No, I'm saying, are there? I think we're on the same page, but I want to make sure I'll say it. My question is, are there open entry level positions? And what I mean by entry level,
Yeah.
like, can a person come and don't need any skills to be able to do it?
Yeah. So for the non-skilled positions, there are positions open, but they're just, it hasn't reached the level to where we would ask HR to suspend the rules to create a hiring blitz.
Okay.
But we're always open to participate in job fairs or any type of hiring event. But it takes a lot of resources away from DHR to put these hiring blitz programs together. So we ask them to use that sparingly.
Okay. The training accomplishments on page 6, the ATC and the GED program are amazing programs. I also wanted to make sure that we're open to other programs, because if we have 8 CDL Class B, that's 8 people for Class B and Class A. We opened up a CDL school on Cleveland Avenue last week that has 30 people every month in it. And so that would be an easy partnership to make sure we're always having folks. And it's a partnership to where we can put people from the city of Atlanta to get their CDLs there, because 8 won't get us to where we need to. I don't think 8 can get us where we need to. The next, the meters on page 12. Thankfully, I was the chair of this committee a little bit all year, and so one of the things that Commissioner Browning and I was working on was with ATL Habitat for Humanity, and what they kept bringing up was the meters and for partners like them. And so we had got to a program. We had got so far. There's emails out there to where they were looking at giving 50 meters per year to Atlanta Habitat. And so I want to know if there's any kind of way we can restart those specific conversations, because I was a part of them, and I set up those meetings with Atlanta Habitat and Department of Watershed Management, in which we were going to work with Atlanta Habitat to where we know that they're building 100. We know they're building 50 to 100 houses per year, and we know that they're a partner. We know that they got the land, the partnerships with the land. So if there's any kind of way that we can help with the 50 meters that we already talked to them about, and I'll tell you why. In my district, we have one of the largest habitat projects in America. That's the Brown Mill Village. And the only issue we're having is we have completed everything else except we don't have meters for the house.
Okay.
Got the funding, everything else.
I'll definitely have a conversation with Deputy Commissioner Smith, who oversees meter installations, for him to bring me up to speed on that program. I was not aware that there was a work in progress.
It was a bowling ball rolling down the alley. My question is if we can get the same people back on the same team. And I have email threads that have those people, so we can just go back into the room and try to get that stuff going. The next question was about still on meters. Did you mention that on page 13, meter installs have went up by 200+%?
271%.
So it's a big need. It's such a big need in the city of Atlanta. That lets you know that it's slowing us up with bringing affordable housing to the city. When Habitat for Humanity is saying they can't bring houses, Atlanta Habitat is saying they can't bring houses online because they don't have meters. So I can only assume that other developers and other investors are going through that. And if it went up by 200% in the last year, it's probably a higher issue than what we would think.
So actually, Councilmember Chairman Lewis, is the last quarter.
Okay,
That was
200% in one quarter.
Yes, yes.
And you
So
said
that represented 3 months.
249%, right? 41%?
I'm sorry.
I was being modest on the number. You said 200 plus. You were like 240
Yeah, no,
something.
271% is how much the
Increase.
inflation went up for that particular quarter. So that represents the conclusion of FY24. So, you know, we're 2 quarters ahead basically now. So those numbers, I'm sure, are continuing to rise. But I'd like to have a conversation with Habitat to understand where the actual need is the need for the availability of a certain type of meter or just the installation of the meter. A lot of times we run into challenges with scheduling the meter installation based on where they are in completing their building project.
I met with them last week. So it's not the meter installation, it's getting the meters. 50 per year would be sufficient. I know we just opened up a new project in District 12 again. So we have the largest development in the country, one of the largest developments in the country for affordable housing where people can own 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom homes. They're paying between $900 and $1,200 a month right on Browns Mill Road. We're building 2 more of those. And the biggest issue we're having is meters. So we got 66 coming here, got another one coming there, and we just got to get to the meters. If there's any kind of way that we can continue the process that we started, I just want to see if that we can get that going. And lastly, and I apologize, lastly is the capacity relief projects remaining. You're doing an amazing job with these projects, amazing job with these projects. I would just like to see more information on South River Sewer Basin. If you look at it, it's the most expensive project in the city of Atlanta. But all we hear about is Proctor Creek and Peachtree Creek. And the south side is actually, the flooding is about to stop. And it's something I've been working on since I got elected. We got the Army Corps of Engineers 2 years ago in here. We're spending $258. 149 on the other, 176 on the other, but there are one-pagers and mailings that are coming out. I've been working on South River Sewer Basin and also the Lakewood Dam, and I would like to see some of that information coming.
Absolutely. I was looking for Director Rawls, who heads up our communications division. I'll find out who the PIO is that's assigned to that project, more importantly, your area. We'll put a project sheet together just to outline the facts.
I just want to get as loud as we can about the good work that we're doing. I don't want to die with a secret over here.
Okay.
Are there any more questions from my colleagues? Commissioner, I truly appreciate you, and I appreciate your service. I appreciate everything else coming. Lastly, Peter, they just said that the Chief Strategic Office is Peter Amon, and he's over the blue ribbon. And so my request from this committee is that we can get Peter. I love Peter Amon. I love Peter Amon. If we can get a Chief Strategy Officer to come in and tell us about what's going on with the Blue Ribbon Committee, because next month, before November's over.
He's probably already, since you said you love him, he's probably watching, taking notes.
He watches when I'm talking all the time anyway.
Right.
He told me that. And so if
Peter
possible,
was a
we
good
can
guy.
get him to come in, and I would love if he comes in and give it, because he's very straightforward with his answers. So we can get him to come in before the end of November.
I will convey the message.
Thank you.
Sure.
We'll now thank you again, Commissioner.
Thank you.
And we'll now transition back in the committee meeting to public comment. And our speaker today was Brother Anthony Muhammad.
Me at Matriarch Hotel. I am that I am, a soulful, spiritual man, not a religious man anymore. I found out that religion was made up by the patriarchs of the society. And I don't think it's necessary for people not to know the truth of the ancient ancestors who gave direction of culture, civilization, and all the education, knowledge of the wanted to get these PhDs and MAs and MSs, even myself. But the reason I come today because as I listened to the presentation with the Department of Watershed Management, and Ms. Boone made a comment about something that was going on, and she wanted attention to it, Mr. Amos. She wanted attention to it like yesterday. You got Mr. Solomon, the Commissioner of Transportation. 2 years we asked him to stripe several streets. In 2 years he hadn't done it yet. Even Chief of Staff Assistant, Mr. Theodis Pace, and I both talked with him several times. That's why I ain't been coming on here. I've been emailing. But with that being said, that's fine. But let's be very clear here today, Mr. Antonio Lewis. I appreciate your service. I appreciate the Department of Watershed Management, Mr. Warren. As you have people that work in various departments, they get moved up to other departments, you see some great work they do. Great consideration of the people that even look like me, give them opportunity to find ways to even enhance their ability to even get through with testing. That sounds wonderful, Mr. Amos. But now where I do have a problem at, Miss Keisha Lance Bottom, y'all remember her, the mayor of Atlanta. This sister proved to me. I voted for Barack the first term. Second term, I had enough of it. But Keisha Lance Bottom left with the intention of going to be the vice president. And we found out they wanted something else for her. I had another agenda with a woman named Kamala Harris. Well, I'll talk about Miss Harris today. Now, you got a country to call India. They got people darker than me and darker than some of you all that look like me. They call them untouchable, like Gandhi down at Martin Luther King. They give presentation and recognition to him. Gandhi said the untouchables are people that you don't want to mess with. They don't have no knowledge. We're not going to support them. Now, hey, you got a woman, Kamala Harris, say the same thing. They call them untouchable. Now, I have a problem with her when she was a DA. A woman had a daughter that had epilepsy. For 2 years, she went to trial because she wanted to charge her with truancy. The child couldn't go to school. The school knew how often she could attend, and the woman lost her house, she lost her job, and the daughter suffered paralysis. So now I'm going to say, Miss Keisha Lance Bottom, you showed us that you were worthy to be here. You saved that family over there on University Avenue when it got burned down. But you gave them support. I'm going to end it with this. I can't continue to support people, Mr. Westmoreland, don't have an agenda and don't want to do the right thing. Now, I would call it you did good for me when we was at city council meeting. You had a vote. You made that for me to get the opportunity to speak. I greet you as I did not greet you. Assalamu alaikum. May I Metro Hotel. I say.
Thank you again, Brother Anthony Muhammad. Mr. Johnson, will you please sound the first reads?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Section G, ordinance for first reading, item number 1, 240-1556. An ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2025 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $7,084,227.48 to transfer funds from the watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the Sewer Group 5 Capacity Relief Peachtree Creek West Side Project 2A and for other purposes. This takes us to our regular agenda, Section H, ordinance for second reading. Item number 2, 240-1528. An ordinance by City Utilities Committee to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement listed herein. Annual contract for traveling screen service and repair with Atlas SSI Incorporated, beginning August 9, 2024, to authorize the mayor or his designee to exercise a second renewal option under the agreement on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 1 year, retroactively effective from August 9, 2024 through August 8, 2025 for time only. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
And do my colleagues need anything from the department? Moving probably second, moved by Councilmember Shook, second by Councilmember Wan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. This takes us to Section I, resolutions. Item number 324R4199. A resolution by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond to amend Resolution 24R 3927, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on September 3rd, 2024, and approved by the mayor on September 10th, 2024, to correct the amount to be donated to Greenlink Analytics and for other purposes.
It's been moved and properly second, moved by Councilmember Shook, second by Councilmember Amos. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 4, 24R 4207, a resolution by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the Second Amendment to agreement listed herein, eBuilder software support and training services with eBuilder Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management to add funding in the amount not to exceed $75,000.00, all contract work we charge to and pay from the fund department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, this item needs to be amended to attach the DOP legislative summary.
So move. It's been moved and properly second, second by Councilmember Shook. Mr. Westmoreland wasn't fast enough. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The amendment has been approved.
Been moved. Moved and properly second, second by Councilmember Westmoreland. Please open the vote. Moved by Councilmember 1, second by Councilmember Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable as amended. Item number 524R 4288, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into agreements with Keep America Beautiful in partnership with Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission and AT&T in connection with this agreement in the amount not to exceed $30,000.00 for a beautification project along Martin Luther King Jr. Drive adjacent to Mosley Park and for other purposes.
Do we need anything from the department? It's been, we actually do have a question from Councilmember 1.
Yeah, this is about form. This is moving money, right? And there's not a funding stream for this?
There's not a, you said there's not a funding stream attached to it? I'll bring up DC Davis, Melissa Davis. Okay, this is a grant we're receiving, that's why there's no funding source. So we're receiving a grant from Keep America Beautiful. We are continuing to do increase employee engagement events. This one is with AT&T for this particular project, so we're receiving these funds. But you're saying there's no funding source attached to where the funds are going. I'm just trying to get clarity.
I'll admit, I mean, the legislation does not really describe it in the same way that y'all just described it, which, again, I think that's leading to the question. And even if we were receiving a grant, there should be a funding stream into which the funds are coming and then going back out. So I'm fine with this. I'm just going to make a motion to approve this on condition that we get the proper information in there by Monday in the final form. So I'll make that motion.
Second. It's been moving properly second. Mr. Johnson, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on condition. Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative items for today.
Any remarks from my colleagues? I have one announcement. The administration will provide an update on People TV at the November 12th CUC meeting. And if you have not made your appointments to the Water and Sewer Appeals Board, please do so at the earliest. Please do so as soon as possible. And lastly, I want to make sure I send a huge shout out to my uncle, my 88-year-old uncle, Charlie Lewis, who made it to the city council to see my utilities committee meeting today, and my aunt Lisa Pollard, who's in the building. So my grandfather's brother's in the building. Good to see you today, brother. I look forward to that. He still drives. He still drives his own car. So Lewis can run long. Thank you again.